first was in etheric world, and we had etheric bodies. Having a body just allowed our essence to have a form through which it could express itself in a world of form. Because obviously everything in this world has a form or has a shape. And so all that happened is when we started to fall unconscious, our bodies became dense and became physical, but our essence did not change. And so having an ego comes along with having a body, because it gives your essence, your mighty I am presence, your monad, etc., a point of focus through which to express itself in the world, and through which to interact with all the other essences that expressed themselves or express themselves in a world of form. So there's nothing wrong with having a body, but we were never ever meant to identify, let alone over-identify with our bodies. And so the ego became a negative ego. And that is how we use the term ego in the I Am University. We don't speak about having an ego, we speak about having a negative ego. And so in essence, or to sum up and recap, negative ego is over-identification with the matter, is over-identification with the matter of the physical body, and over-identification with the matter of this physical world. And so, I lost my thread. Okay, and so if you ego is over-identification with matter, period. And if you over-identify, so to just quickly recap, if you over-identify with your body, you will live in separation, you will think separative thoughts. As a consequence, you will think fear-based thoughts. You will, as a consequence, think illusionary thoughts, live out of your lower self, become selfish, and base your worth as well as the worth of everyone else on your physical body and on what you look like in a physical sense. And this is mass consciousness. This is negative ego, fear-based, separative, dualistic, illusionary, selfish, lower self-consciousness. This is the consciousness of humanity en masse. And this is why one country is going to war against another. Because you cannot have peace in the world if you don't have peace within yourself. And you cannot have peace within yourself if you think negative ego, fear-based, separative, dualistic, illusionary, selfish, lower self thoughts, because that is what you will be seeing. And that is why our educational system is completely devoid of anything spiritual, because if you think you are a body, you will reduce yourself to your lower concrete mind. And that is why people don't even know that we have a higher abstract mind, because in our own consciousness and thinking, we have cut ourselves off from source. And that is why we live in a dog-eat-dog society. A dog-eat-dog society is a society which is caught in the underdog and top-dog philosophy and mentality. If you look around in our world, people are constantly judging, attacking, criticizing, and bad-mouthing others. This is being caught in top-dog and underdog duality, and it is a consequence of thinking that you are a body and identifying yourself with your body and thinking that everybody else is just a body as well. So you start to compare and compete and judge, etc. And this is why negative ego, over-identification with matter, this is why so many artists in our world speak to the lower self. It couldn't be different, because if you're cut off from your higher self, you naturally live out of your lower self. And this is why if Hollywood produces a movie, if it is without sex and crime and any kind of fancy explosion, people won't buy it, which is kind of a sad or unfortunate testimony of human consciousness. But it is just a testimony of what mass consciousness on Earth looks like. And this is why our scientists just perceive or just think reality is reduced to our 5 senses. Traditional scientists just believe what they can see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. And they do not recognize that spirit has built an infinite number of super senses inside of us, which allow us to explore, to interact, to experience the different forms of reality, the different levels of reality. And so they are completely reduced to this physical reality and to our 5 senses. And this is why negative ego or over-identification with matter, this is why in traditional Christianity, they teach that Jesus is the only Son of God. Or this is why in Christianity we are told that we are sinful, lowly worms. That it's a projection of not having self-worth unto God. Or this is why in the Old Testament God is really angry and judgmental and constantly in a rage. Well, God is a being who knows love without needing fear as a reference point. God is love, but we had projected our consciousness, we had projected our fear, our separation, our duality onto God. And that is why in the Old Testament, God is constantly raging and angry and fighting and whatever. And this is why Buddhism, traditional Buddhism, is a non-theistic religion. And this is why there is such a thing as a caste system in Hinduism that declares or defines the value of a person based on the kind of fortune they have when they are born. And this is why Islamic fundamentalists terrorize the world in the name of Allah. They are actually very sincere in what they are doing. They're just gravely misguided. They're just projecting their wrong relationship to self onto Allah. So the question is, what's the way out of all of this? How can we get out of mass consciousness? How can we transcend negative ego, fear, separation, duality, illusion, lower self, and selfishness? How can we re-establish the state of consciousness that we knew when we first came to this planet? How can we restore the state of consciousness that we knew in early Lemuria, a state of consciousness where everything is love and bliss and joyful and wonderful and powerful and glorious? Well, let's go back again to our very first question. What is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is not to become God. The purpose of life is to realize God. And so there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that you have to do to become God, but there is something you have to undo to realize God, to realize Brahma, Allah, Dharmakaya, the I am that I am. And that something that you have to undo to realize God, well,